And we are live. Hey, good evening, LinkedIn. Dave Wilson, the Ring of Hire Show. Hey, got a great guest tonight. Jason's back on. How you doing, Jason?
Hey, guys. How are you, Dave? Hey, everybody.
Awesome. Hey, we got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking about employee retention. So you know the drill. Be right back after this video. All right, Jason, breaking news. I have a job offer for you.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm going to read it to you, okay?
Okay.
I want to offer you $160,000 a year, 12 weeks vacation, work your own schedule, 3-day work week. You choose your days off. We pay 100% of your benefits for everyone in your family. I don't even care how many kids you got in the house. 4 weeks of sick time, 15 holidays pay. We're going to pay your phone bills and your grandkids' phone bills, and we're going to pay your children's college for free.
Well, it's got to be false. I don't have any grandkids.
I had to lead this.
I knew it was too good to be true. No.
Yeah, I had to read this in tonight about the show because we're talking about employee retention.
Yeah.
Now, I think that would retain employees.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels to retain to throw out an employee in order to retain them, and a comp and benefits total rewards package is definitely a way to entice folks to come to an employer and stay with an employer.
I would go crazy even if you said 4 weeks of sick time, because my last company, and I can say it was Staff Mark when I was with them. You know, I had 3 or 4 weeks vacation. Well, they came out with that unlimited vacation time, PTO.
I had that. So, my last role, I had that as well.
You should have seen everybody were like, what do you mean unlimited? Oh, as much as you want. So I was the manager. So I'm thinking, then when you broke it down, how you had to organize it, people were still only taking the amount of time that they had.
Correct.
Because I was afraid. I was like, wait a minute here. You mean I can be off?
You have an entitlement personality that goes into the policies like that. So, there's the guilt of, do I take time off because I have things to do, versus am I taking too much time off? So there's also the aspect of that of, if there's not an obligation to pay that out. So many of the states, and again, here I am getting into like the legal stuff again with compliance and HR. But many states require payouts, not for any kind of PTO. Some are earned, some are include sick time, some are just vacation. But there's so if you have a policy where there is not an earned vacation, pay, then there's nothing to pay out upon leaving, whether it's a resignation or a termination.
That came up a lot with people.
Yeah, so that's another reason why companies do stuff like that. And there's also ones that have carryover as well. So carryover vacation policies where there's payouts. So usually in the West, with some of those, some of those states in the West, aka California. Of course,
even get me going there.
But that's definitely one of the reasons why companies have done that.
Well, when they said, I was the manager, so I was like, all right, well, what they said, if your employee was doing their job, right? They're doing their job. Your reports are done. Your staffing's done. Everybody. But what happens if I turned it down for somebody that's a low performer? So then they told me, well, why would you turn them down? Because if you're not coaching them, that was the way of saying that I had to go ahead and coach the employee to make sure. Because listen, you can't be choosy. Everybody was saying, well, he likes her, she likes him, they like this person, they had 10 days off, this one has this. It was stressful.
Yes,
we didn't know what to do.
Well, that's why you get to someone like in HR, and we always want to drive some sort of consistent policy that's equally applied to everybody, so you don't get into those pitfalls of favoritism, which can easily turn into discrimination or of some sort. So we try and avoid those types of things and be consistent.
Well, when you had the person, a brand new employee, and I remember sitting there, her name was Marcia. I was like, she goes, how much vacation? Whatever you want. Yeah. She's like, sick time, whatever you need. What? Yeah, it's unlimited. Yep. The new employee didn't. Whoa, they were just like, whoa, what? Yeah. So that was really different. Now we got Joel in the house. Hello, Joel.
Hey, Joel.
Mr. Joel. He's we're doing a show next week after the holiday on Joel, you're gonna kick me in the butt. It's not Tin Cups. It's he's gonna tell me. Joe, what is that called again? He'll know it. But I wanted to talk tonight about a couple things, about employee retention, and I didn't realize, well, people should realize the cost alone of high turnover. I mean, you've had to see that in your career. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Toastmasters, Joe just mentioned.
That's it, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
So yeah, I have, and unfortunately, I've worked for companies. Fortunately, I worked for companies with significant growth, but then again, I've also worked for companies that were doing significant restructuring. And and when a company goes through restructuring and downsizing, the culture takes a huge hit, and retention becomes a major issue because, again, I've talked to you that this is like you got both sides of the coin here. You got retention, you got recruiting, which is a huge cost to a company. Bringing somebody in, but then there's also that cost to retain. So that it could be said that you spend it's twice as costly to lose an employee than it is to actually hire an employee. So yeah, there's a big expense, sign-on bonuses, recruiter salaries, up to bring them on, but then you have unproductive, a ramp up of productivity with that new hire. You have the person's knowledge upon leaving and so turnover is usually twice as costly as having to hire somebody. So,
as a recruiter, though, I believe a company should really teach the recruiter so they know that. When you have a new recruiter, let them understand. Like, I understand the cost because with the company I had, you understand. As a recruiter, you're like, wow, this is getting very costly. So what can we do? What can we do about it? Because I want to make sure that it's not that you're not bringing in the right people, because you could bring in the right people, but if your team, if you lose them through the company, that's totally different. That's the way I look at it. If it comes through, like, and we'll talk more about all the reviews and all stuff like that, but I just feel that everybody should know the cost. What is the cost of it?
Well, and you know what? It's something absolutely that the company should have figured out. Like the recruiter should know that.
Yep.
And obviously your leadership team and your HR business partner of sorts, which was where I spent a lot of my time, absolutely needs to be able to do that, to understand that. So what costs you're willing or what expenses are you're willing to go through in order to retain that person, like you said. Like you kicked off the show, like are you willing to give them more money or a better benefits package in order to retain them and keep them, which also should attract more people to the company.
It should attract.
So there's two-sided benefit to some of these things.
That's awesome. We got Daryl in the house. Daryl, I know you'll have questions. He's out in Texas. Daryl always has questions, which is great. So feel free. When you're bringing in the onboarding, we talked about it before, and one of the second biggest is onboarding can be the experience of it can either make or break in the beginning. Like that new employee is going to stay there for a certain amount of time. If you're not honest, like I was reading a lot today, and I was like, wow, if you're not honest with that employee, that can just turn them on a dime.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so a good thing to do is make sure you are getting frequent feedbacks, right? Throughout that onboarding experience and even the recruiting experience. Like, how is your recruiter? Did they explain to you that one of the biggest things I heard at Sears when I was there is the recruiter didn't explain the job and or the manager. It wasn't the same job based on the interview.
Right.
And that was a huge thing that we would come up, we'd have to tackle. It was like, give them a realistic job preview or realistic expectation, because that it's the bringing somebody on and training them. There's a major expense, and then they have the morale too of bringing somebody in and as someone that's training them, a peer training them or something like that. It's demoralizing to bring somebody in and don't have a good personality, a good understanding of the role. They don't know why they're here. And then they're demotivated, like you said, because the job wasn't explained to them correctly. So it's rough. It's very rough to bringing in that new talent and making sure they're a good fit.
To the day. Joel asked, are we talking manufacturing? It can be, manufacturing, office jobs. I think it can go anywhere. Whew.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you look at executive roles and as well, often there'll be an overlap too when you get to executive level positions, because they want to make sure it's a smooth transition. They recognize that there's an upskilling. And a lot of these roles, there's the word upskilling. There's a lot of these roles take several months, if not a year or so, to really get that person up to speed. Especially in trades jobs where you're hiring someone that might not have that skill set. It could take upwards of a year for someone to learn how to do that job proficiently.
Especially when even some of the main, like Joe, I know Joel says big difference between the two, and there is. Like manufacturing, wow. I look back at the paper industry when I got out of the military, I was with my parents there. The training that they put us through on these huge paper machines was not cheap. I mean, you learned, it took you a couple of years to even work your way up. And when a runner or somebody that ran a machine was wanting to leave, you did everything you did to keep that person, because he could make or break, that person could make or break you. I was like, whoa. But I understood then it was different than it is now. But we made sure, you couldn't give money. It was a union environment. But there was other things that we did for him and the person on the machine that we tried to cater. We did cater to them a little bit. You had to. Yeah.
And, and to your point, like Darryl just put in here, most don't invest in upskilling. I'm reading it, not verbatim here. Most don't have employees help with upskilling. And they do that because the fear of people leaving. They found that the answer, they need to learn their people and find ways to better entice them to stay. So in essence, what he's trying to say is you're over investing in people often. So where you could just work with them internally, they're just throwing money at a problem instead of addressing it through a learning and development opportunity. And then going back to Joel's point about the differences, I agree completely. Ramping up someone on a production line, or a pick and pack type of person, it might only take a day or two for them just to learn how to operate the handheld device to scan, something and put it away and ship it out. So totally agree there. But there's also the fact of what happens if that person gets injured? What happens if that person, is not picking and packing and sorting it the right way? What's the impacts to the business and the business's reputation when it comes to quality controls they have in place? So, it's just making sure you get the right people in there, and then obviously you have people with theft and all that other stuff. But making sure that you have those right hires are really important. And if they bring in bad people or people that have negatively influencing others, it could affect the culture of the workforce on the floor.
That's a definite.
So that's a definite thing. Or from a union avoidance perspective, that could cause an issue as well. If you have I don't want to really use the word rebel rouser, but someone who could be with that intent. So
it is. Emily says, hi, Emily. I found that in some cases, the reason employees end up leaving falls back to the onboarding and orientation experience or the lack of. Correct.
Yeah.
I'll give it. That's what I was talking about. And, if you don't try to tell them everything, that's on you.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're going to find out. And it comes back to the recruiter a lot of the times. Well, Dave didn't say this or Dave didn't do that. So it's as easy as making a checklist or just making sure, smile, everything you can to make that person happy so they have a great experience.
Correct. Imagine a manager during that onboarding or a trainer during that onboarding experience and orientation experience where they're, they're very down on the company, or they're not engaged with the employee to build that relationship, to see through with their success. They put them down, or they, how do you not know what the difference is between a Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver, or how do you know, how do you not know how to do this already? I showed you 2 times. So things like that could completely demoralize. So, making sure that it's a good experience is really important. I actually really like Joel's point that he just makes here. that it's two things that they really want. It's to be heard and to have their needs met. And, when I look, I mentioned this before. I believe I mentioned it on the first time I was on the broadcast, but I mentioned it quite a bit, that it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, making sure that an employer is taking care of employees on certain levels. It goes back to Maslow and that philosophy of, physiological needs are the basics being met, food, air, food, water, shelter, and then safety needs, belonging, esteem, and self-actualization, all those levels. It's really, really important that an employer's touching and satisfying each of those. And the more that they're satisfying, the more engaged that employee will be and want to stay and remain an employee with that company. So
do you believe in, and we'll get some of these comments here in a couple minutes. When Darryl was saying about transferable skills, we've talked it numerous times on the show, and I don't know anymore. I just feel really good about transferable skills, because take COVID all aside, we've all said that, but things are changing, and a manager could be taught, but you can't, I should say, like a leader, could you put them in pharmaceutical? Could you put them in manufacturing? Could you put them in? Can you teach those person the skills? And I believe in transferable skills anymore, because a lot of people will look at the resumes when they'll come in, new employees, say, well, you're not qualified. I'm like, what do you mean they're not qualified? Yeah, that's just me. I'm big on that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's looking. You got those recruiters. What do they look for? They look for the purple squirrel. Remember that? Isn't that that's the ideal candidate,
right?
According to recruiting. And guess what? There is no such thing as a purple squirrel. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. But transferable skills, absolutely, it's important, especially when it comes to blue collar type of roles. If someone's mechanically inclined, they probably can work across different types of trades roles with a little bit of guidance and upskilling. So having a basic, knowing electricity and knowing how to diagnose stuff, read a schematic, know the difference between voltage and amps and ohms, and how to do continuity tests, use a multimeter. That could be used across how many different trades? Not just an electrician, but many different trades. So legal, lawyers, I'll even point out. Yes, I mean, there are specialties, but a lawyer can work across all different types of law professions.
That's a great analogy right there. I like that. That's pretty good right there. Like that gets it out there. And that's where I wish some companies, because I hear it all the time from people, I really wish that they would do that. Now I'm going to give you an example. Oh, well, we got to get this guy in here. Yeah. I'm sorry, but here we go.
I giggled. I saw it ahead of time. Yeah.
Jason,
thanks, looks so right there. I got the tie on for you, bud.
Kenny, he's got the tie. We didn't tell each other we were going to wear white shirts, though.
Yeah. Very surprised
that I got a white. Let's see. I know. Oh, James. Good evening. Hope you're wow. James Pemberton over in New England. This gentleman, real quick, a quick story about James. James came on my show when I first started out 3 years ago. He was looking for a job over, he's in another country, England, right?
Okay.
So he came on and we did the show and everything like that. So he wanted to be different. He ended up making Fox News, everything over here and everything, because he put his resume on the back of a truck.
Really?
hire me. And he paid
awesome.
this thing and he got his job on there. But James, it's great to see you. Wow, I haven't talked to this guy in so many years.
Nice.
And we get a lot of people here tonight. Emily, also, don't overload them with too much information in such a short period of time. Employees get overwhelmed, frustrated, stressed. That's a good point.
Yeah, I agree completely. You need to do frequent check-ins. We used to do different types of check-ins. One with the manager. We would do one with the mentor. And the manager would talk to the mentor, like, how's this guy doing or gal doing? Where are they? Where do we have to focus on within their process? The other thing is just making sure that, like she said, the workload. So I get it. Like a production line, it's the lines going at that speed. But if there's an opportunity to, look at their amount of work that they're performing and ramp it down a little bit, work them at 75% of the expectation, so that way they can work up to that and not feel overloaded. Absolutely. I was, when giving a caseload to a lawyer, you're not going to give them a full caseload. You're going to go easy on them, and work them up to that level of what they can do. So I agree completely with that.
We used to, my one boss always said, start the new recruiter out on a Wednesday, because this way you start them out in the middle of the week, not on a Monday, because they got to go a full week. And you're just overloading. At least on a Wednesday, they get 3 days, then you get a weekend to breathe,
Yep.
To absorb everything, write your notes, do everything like that. But
Hey.
I like that. I know what she's talking about there, because I think
Yeah.
I've done that. I've done that in the past to people, and I know I have.
Well, what's one of the biggest things it's going to do? It's going to build up someone's confidence. Right.
Yep.
Like that's like one of the, because what if you're giving them too much, it's destroying their confidence.
Yep.
So that's a huge thing and when someone's confident in what they do, they feel good about what they do. When someone's feeling good about what they do, they want to keep doing it. So it's all goes back to the topic of tonight, being employee retention, is making sure someone is engaged and wants to remain employed at that company. So confidence building through, looking at how much work you're giving them is absolutely a key and a great point.
I always just look at their eyes. You can tell. Even when I was trying to learn something, I'm hands-on, you're looking at me, you're like, whoa, they're trying to keep up with the notes. And I think I used to do that too. I'd be like with my notes going like that. I'm like, oh my God, slow down.
The deer in the headlights stare.
Oh my God. Yeah, right.
You're going over stuff and they're just like, yeah, and they're lost. They're like completely overwhelmed. So
that is.
I agree with it completely.
Yep, Kenny, where's your tie? Kenny, I promise you, the next show I'll wear a tie. You watch Jason will probably wear not a tie or something like that. The next thing was, inadequate compensation and benefits. I know that's a deep subject that can go on for a long time, but to be transparent up front, I believe that the salaries and everything on me should be on a job description. That's just me. I don't know about some. I'll take heat for that again, because some people say no, and I, say yes. And I think there should be a minimal, maximum, maybe, to try to do that. And then also the benefits, because you can tell me I have these benefits, but you got to explain the cost too. If you know that they're high in cost, do you sit there and tell the person, "Oh my God, it's so freaking expensive"? You'll scare them out. You'll scare them away. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I agree. And
okay, there you go.
So some of it, your first point about pay, yeah, I can hear you. We're good, Dave. Pay, certain states now have pay transparency laws, so you have to post a minimum and maximum that the job pays now. So that's really important point, which is great. But yes, what that's doing. That's also driving transparency to pay for people that are at the lower end of the spectrum, and they can see what the job might be. So that's also driving some issues as well.
Yep.
But yeah, bringing in someone that is at a higher pay than their trainer, that's a problem. But there's also this this inflationary job market that we're in, where people are demanding a lot more money. And companies are having a hard time. They're struggling with upping the pay of their incumbent workforce to match that of the workforce that's looking for jobs. So, and then the other point of benefits expenses, there should be transparency there on benefits, especially if a company has a rich benefits plan. They should advocate how much that benefits plan is costing in order and how much that and how much benefit the employee is getting out of that, because they are benefits are a huge cost when it comes to medical and dental and vision, but especially the medical portion.
I always tell them the benefits,
as well as PTO. The PTO policy is a huge expense to a company, because not only are you paying the person not to be there, you're paying for the lost revenue too from that person not being there, especially if it's a manufacturing type job or something that is widget based role. Yep.
I feel that when we offer, I always tell them about the vision is really good, the dental is really good, the doctor office visit. Hey, it's only $25 and $50 for a specialist. Listen, those are the kind of things that I want to hear, because I think my kids, what's it going to cost? And that employees, behind that there. Emily says, do you find that companies still practice 30, 60, 90-day reviews and PIPs? I do. I mean, so that's a best practice, right? Well, PIPs are required when you get to incumbents and they're past a probationary period, but the 30, 60, 90 day is what I would consider a best practice. Typical companies will do just probably a probationary period, typically 90 days or slightly more depending upon the role. But absolutely within that probationary period, whether it's 90 days, let's use the 90-day example, they should be giving a feedback at a 30 and a 60-day increment. So that way that new hire knows how they're doing in the onboarding. So that way, if they're not being successful in a certain area, you at least let them know, hey,
you're deficient in this area. We're going to get you some more training. We need to focus on that because, you know, it's important in order to be successful. And yes, by the way, you're still under probation, just as a reminder. So, so that way, if it does get to that end of probationary period and they're failing, it's an easy,
but I believe you need to teach that person. That's your moment. That's your time.
Oh yeah.
Because if you say like, Emily, we hired Emily, you're slow, and I don't really say much to her, but at 30 days, well, we're not going to keep you. Yeah. There's where I find it the manager's fault. Listen, but if I've told you how to do, I know you said with PIPs. No, I've been on a PIP when I was, that is when you've been with company for. I was on there. It was actually a good thing because the way it worked was they told me what I needed to do. They really wound me back down, you know, so I was able to keep my job and move on, and it worked well. But when you just let somebody go and for that probation period, they don't know why. I just don't think that's fair. It's not good. They're going to put a review, you know, and that can hurt too.
Hey, surprises are only good at birthdays, right? So, you know, when it comes to something that's negative, people don't like surprises. So, or engagement proposals, like, you know, save the surprises for good times. You know, you don't want to save it for something that's going to be a conversation that's, you know, could be conflict, because you're just setting it. So you're just setting it up for even worse conflict. So, you know, definitely should not come as a surprise. And stick to trying doing best practices with 30, 60, 90 on a probation. So
that gets around too, because when you're hiring a lot and you listen, referrals, everybody knows referrals is great. When you can get referrals for your company, that's awesome. When they can bring people in, you know, when I want to get a referral, you want that person like an Emily to say, wow, hey, Dave, do you want to work for us? Come on in. Man, they treat you great when you're getting hired. You're on a probationary period, but they'll help you. Those are the kind of things I think that need to be shown. And
the other thing I would always say, Dave, just to jump in, is always try and balance your conversation too. So if you're going to tell someone that there's something going on that they're deficient at, try and also have something that's positive about what they're doing as well. So, you know, you don't want them to just walk away like, oh, I stink, you know, they're going to terminate me. You know, just, you know, couch it with, I want to also point out that, you know, you really have really good customer service scores, or you're really your peers are saying you're really a team player. You know, so try it. There should always be something that you can find positive in the person, or, hey, even though you're slacking in this one area, you know, you have perfect attendance. You're always on time. You're always ready to go. So like, there's so many good things that you can couch with that. So makes them more, keeps them engaged. So
no, that's really not bad. No, I know. I like what you said that. Yeah, I agree. Kenny, I never heard of the PIPs. What are PIPs? Gladys Knight. Kenny, I'm going to give you an example because I'm not afraid to say I was on one time. One time I was at an on-site manager spot, and I was having a hard time with the client plus the employees. I was all over the place. The client was like, well, they were trying to help me. But what my company did is they came in, my boss sat me down. They actually gave me a plan. So they gave me a plan that I had to do this, and this. And that was, if I did all of them, you know, after I did them, everything was fine. But a PIP, that can go reverse role. If you don't listen to them, then that's where they can really that's where they end you. You know, that's my opinion.
So really, I had an example where I worked with a manager one time who explained, you know, I sat in on the PIP because we thought it was going to be contentious with this person.
Right.
And he came out of the military, this manager, and I'm not going to give you the verbatim what he said because I don't know if it's appropriate for the broadcast, but here's what he said. He told the employee, hey, right now you're in a hole. You're in a pretty deep hole too. And guess what? I'm at the top of the hole and I got a rope. I'm going to hold that rope. I won't let go of that rope. But it's on you to pull yourself out of that hole. So it's your choice. You know, I'll be here. I'm going to coach you. I'm going to root from you from the top of that hole and give you everything that you need to be successful to get out of it. But at any time, it's going to be on you to get out of it. Yeah. You got to pull yourself out, or you got to let go and just fall.
And just fall. And it's okay to leave. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But you know, so I like the example, you know, and it goes back to this other point that that Darryl just mentioned, which I really like: mentor, monitor, and motivate. So it goes kind of what I just said. It's a great point. I really like that. Mentor, monitor, and motivate. And that's what being a good mentor is, being a good coach, right? But it's also being a teacher. So you can't just root somebody on. You also got to show them what they're doing wrong and how to do it right. So great point.
It's like Kenny. Kenny, I have a question for you. Kenny's been at his employer for 35.5. I had to add that. Kenny, you've been at your employer 35.5 years. Kenny, what makes you want to stay with that company that you've been there for 35 years? That generation's almost gone. You don't see that many people with that 25, 30 years. But for 35 years, that's a long time. So that companies must have treated right. You've been with the company. You know you love that company. You've been there that long. I'm sorry if I was there for 35 years, But Daryl, yeah, you got that one there. Let me take that one out. But well, wait. I mean, Kenny will say that on there. But I agree with you. I like that. Motivate. What was that again? It was motivate, mentor,
monitor, and motivate. Yep.
Now I got to write that one down. Remember that one on that one.
So Daryl also brings up about why only use PIPs as a disciplinary response instead of using as a development tool. So, a lot of times, and companies have different names for different stuff. So, typically a development plan would be an IDP, an individual development plan. So it's just and the reason why they wouldn't use it because PIPs have been known to be synonymous with an improvement that's needed. So a lacking or a insufficient performance or a deficient performance, should I meant to say. So, just working with someone on developing to get to the next level is typically done through an IDP, an individual development plan.
That makes
so
sense.
it's just, but honestly, at this end of the day, you're right, Daryl. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just helping someone get better, whether or not it's back to standard or above standard to prepare them for their next role. It's all about the mentoring, monitoring, and motivating, like Daryl said before, working with them to get to that next level. So that way they remain employed and engaged. So I like it.
I'm for it. Everybody says I'm crazy, but listen, it helped me. It can go, listen, some people can put you on that for that reason, but it's okay if you can't complete everything, then maybe it's not for you. Sometimes that job isn't for you, know, but if they do it nicely, and I agree what he even says there. Limited growth opportunities. I wanted to talk to you about tonight. So to me, I know everybody wants to grow. Like, I believe promoting within. That's if you can promote within, I really believe in that because the people that do the jobs are there. Again, people hit me up and say about leadership. Well, not everybody's a leader, within that thing. What do you tell people that when they're coming in, is there room for growth? Can you give me an example?
Honestly, that should be something that's discussed always in the interview, whether or not the candidate brings it up or the recruiter brings it up. I've interviewed. I left the company for that. I actually left Sears. The first time I left Sears, it was for a much better role, much more pay. But really, the big reason I left Sears, I couldn't get promoted and move up in the company unless I relocated to Chicago, and I didn't want to. So and that was one of the things that I was willing to go back. The only reason why I was willing to go back is because at a pay loss and a demotion was because I could move up into the company and not have to relocate out of New Jersey. Now, granted, I would have to travel and so forth, but so that's huge. And when I talk to employers now, interview and so forth, the recruit, I either ask it as a candidate or they'll bring it up to me. It's definitely something that has to get disclosed because what is a candidate? I mean, if you're really a good candidate, you should want to know about what opportunities there are for growth. Or if you're a good recruiter, you should want to know what those person's aspirations are to remain with the company long term. So, I
think it's great. I tell people all the time.
That should be disclosed.
Yeah, and I tell them all the time, like they want to be a lead. Then we have supervisors. Then you got top managers. And then as you go on, listen, some of the companies, I wish they would give more training for different type of things. But you know what? That's just it's up to the company. It's for growth. What if you have an employee that wants to do something over and over and over? Like Joel says, sometimes the hardest part is finding places for them to move to. That can be depressing for an employee. And
when we think of growth, we sometimes always associate that with a promotion, and it's not. Growth could be them being a team lead, which is somewhat of a promotion. I get that, but it also could be learning a different skill or work, like in a warehouse. Someone starts in one department, but then they move to a different department. So maybe they were in shipping, and now they're in receiving, or they go from receiving, now they go to quality control, or they go to reassortments or repackaging. So there's sometimes it's difficult, but more times than not, there are opportunities to find them and expand their skill sets. or also work with them and encourage them to, use it if there's a tuition reimbursement or an opportunity for them to learn a skill set to move into other roles through, trainings, teaching them Excel and computers more if they were in a warehouse. I'm using the warehouse example right now, obviously. But there are opportunities to try and move them around and gauge what their interests are.
And that's a good point for Excel, Word, everything, just the basics. If people need something like that, that's not a bad idea for that.
And then making sure that you work with them on the things that keep them engaged. If they don't have an expectation or a wanting desire to go be promoted or move up, then what is it about the job that really keeps you engaged? And to make sure you know that as their manager and work and cherish that as the reason why they remain working there. I like the night shift. I like working nights, and that's why I want to work here. Well, guess what? Don't ever move that person off the night shift, right? So that's what works for them. So
I love it. Emily, people in most cases are willing to learn new things, but the company has to be capable of and willing to train and coach. Exactly. Correct. That's what we're trying to say there. And I agree totally with that, Emily. Some of the companies, when I talk to some of my friends, I wish they did. Now, I would say back in the day, we had that. They really, a lot of tuition reimbursement. That was a big thing.
Yes. I lucked out. Lucked out with that. My master's degree was paid 100%. Based on tuition reimbursement. And, again, most companies don't do that. I was able to show the direct correlation between my job and what I was getting my master's in labor relations. And I was very fortunate from that standpoint. And that's a big, a lot of companies don't do that, but they do subsidize. A lot of them do still subsidize it. So one way or another, or they'll pay for different types of certifications that often are just as worthwhile nowadays. Especially
for mechanics and all different things.
Exactly.
You'd have to, but training, how are they going to learn? You'd have to do stuff like that. Darryl, we also do not increase pay outside of promotions, so they cannot increase earnings. This is when offering things such as training, developing them for the future positions is important. So we also do not increase pay outside of promotions.
Well, what he's talking about is there's a budget constraint there. So, most likely. So it's important to find and be creative is what's important there is if you can't just, not every problem is just solved with money. Right. And money often is usually a short-term solution. It's a you got a peak and a valley. You got, give someone a pay increase, they're really happy, and then it goes right back down after a couple months. So, investing in them through training is a long-term benefit, because guess what? They're never going to lose that skill set, right? So you're investing in them, and the company's going to benefit from it as well, most likely, as long as they're getting trained in what they're in the role that they're doing, or the same type of work that they're doing.
That's the truth.
So it's a long-term benefit both ways.
Both ways. The next one I was looking at a lot. I know everybody says, they don't leave the work, they leave bad bosses, leadership and management issues. And that, again, some of these subjects here, wow, you could talk. You could talk along, and that does leadership and management issues. It does have a lot to play with that. Again, I just think it comes down to a good team. If you have problems, you need to go to your management or your leaders or somebody, get some advice. But I can see that being in the beginning, maybe, or even it doesn't matter. That subject there wouldn't matter for years, because you're changing bosses all the time too.
True. What I would say is there's no easier way to drive off an employee than a bad manager. So that's what I would kind of couch that. I don't want to generalize and say most people leave because of management. I don't know, but bad managers will drive away people quickly. So that is definitely a truth. There is definitely truth to that point.
It is. Kenny, tonight's conversations. Kenny, where does he get these words? He gets them all there. I love it. You got to love Kenny. And he even said before that he just loves his job. He just loves his job at 35.
Professional commentator too.
We should start Kenny. We should start putting that on there, or being like a sponsor. I do want to make Kenny an offer. I've said this before, Jason.
I think I'll take the offer you said at the beginning of the show, Dave,
to bring him on the show. He should come on the show, because everybody knows Kenny, and that would be a great show to put him in the middle, like a roast.
I would bet money that he will not come on the show, probably. But
we'll have to make
but he will comment nonstop, and he'll be the professional commentator.
And he'll be the professional. All right. the other one here, God, the role of company culture and retention. Again, that word culture. It comes up in a lot of the shows. It's the same thing. I think if you show it, if you got to put it out there, either on social media, people see what you do. I see a lot of companies when like breast awareness for cancer, when they do all their walks, and they donate a lot of money for stuff like that. And people go to carnivals, they set up booths. There's just all different things that I've seen companies around the Lehigh Valley do.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely big payback when it comes to that.
Yep.
And a lot of companies build that into their employment package that, hey, we'll give you 1 or 2 or 3 days off per year to go volunteer time at a charity of your choice, or they have their own internal charities that they encourage employees to go on retreats or go participate in Habitat for Humanity and so forth. And then yes, there's companies that do things for their customers that go above and beyond and hit a touch point. I mean, I'm going to mention this one out there, Chewy. My dog passed away a little over a month ago, and they sent flowers, and they, to me, and like that was like awesome. The fact that they care, and I know they do that. I'm pretty sure they do that for everybody who tell them that
still it's a great thing.
They can't do business. They can't buy their dog food anymore because the dog passed away. But stuff like that go a long way from a customer, and then those employees get to participate in stuff like that. It goes a long way. That they give him an offer he can't refuse.
Money. Told you, it's that's what we need to get Kenny on here. I'll start making some offers, Kenny. So. We'll be negotiating. We'll let you negotiate it. So I wanted to hit. I wanted to hit this one here really about what we talked about on. Here we go. Remote work and hybrid.
Oh, good one.
You see a lot more of the companies on LinkedIn. Look at all these tech giants, all these other ones, just having everybody come back to the office. Office. Yeah. They said the impact of remote work on employee retention. Now that's got to be high right now. I mean, come on, right? I mean,
people are hop, skipping, and jumping all day long with roles because of roles like that. I mean, they spend. Look at Kenny, 35 years at a company. Not saying he's going to do it, but imagine
35.5. No, 35.5.
But people are leaving because they can work from home, and they got used to working from home, and now they're going to go work for a company where they can work from home instead of going back to work. There's lots of job hopping. Because of stuff like that going on. Actually, going back to one of your earlier points, Dave, there was a manager that I worked with who, if someone was put on a PIP, they brought them back into the office from a remote role as disciplinary, because it would be training, so as a way to deter people from underperforming. If you were underperforming, you had to come back into the office for retraining with the manager, and until you got off the PIP, at which point you can go back to
Boy, that would be a hell of a deterrent.
Right? How do you like that? How do you like that? So, I mean, talk about certain things that would really be like, like you said, a deterrent, but also possibly a motivator for someone not to work there anymore as well.
I had a great one of my guests for Matt. He was talking to me about people were complaining about different salaries for remote work, and it made a lot of sense. Listen. The same job in California with the same job in New Jersey. Well, they're kind of the same, but in California and New Jersey, they're going to be different. I know. I don't want to go there, but that's going to be, there is a big pay difference for the same amount of job. Everybody's like, well, they only pay, say, $50,000 for a recruiter here, but they're paying $75,000 over here. Well, it all depends on what state you're in. So when you're going for work, you need to be prepared, but that's what they make.
Yeah, and there's different pay requirements in the states, not just from a minimum wage, but like from an exempt level pay. There's a certain level that the jobs have to be at, and then you get into stuff like in California and certain other states where there's reimbursement requirements for internet usage and phone usage.
Yeah, they do that.
So in New Jersey, that you don't have to reimburse somebody for that, but in California, you actually have to reimburse them a certain amount to give them a stipend towards internet and cell phone when doing it for work. So there's certain state laws that really drive that as well. But going back to the point, there's definitely a compensation aspect of just what the job is worth to somebody, because commuting cost. I mean, I interviewed for a role today that is in Manhattan, and and there's an expense, not just the time expense, but there's a monetary expense to take that train in and get into Manhattan every single day versus a remote role where if I'm right here from my desk, how much money do I save by not having to personally commute or drive? How much money do I save by possibly just eating lunch at home every day versus going out to lunch and so forth. There's a lot, and even just work attire. I mean, I typically still work in a professional outfit at home, but people might not go invest, especially, I hate the stereotype, but women might spend a lot of money annually on clothing and products to prepare themselves to go into an office, for beauty and health aid products to go into an office where if they're working from home and they're not on camera, they might be able to save a lot of money on stuff like that. So again, I don't want to stereotype, but I'm just throwing out examples here. There is a lot of differences in considerations that people put into these.
They have it here that you could use this for a perk of, it says here, implementing changes based on employee suggestions. Nope, I did. 1 second. Address challenges related to remote work and retention, leveraging technology, but also offering for scheduling. For this scheduling of flexible. So that means, listen, like if I don't feel well, I can work from home.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. So it's not that I take advantage of that, but to have that flexibility, that's what I should say, the flexibility in scheduling for that. If you offer that, just little things like that can really go a long way. Because I love that part. I'm not that sick that much, but when I am, knowing I could do that, that's great. It's awesome.
I mean, the amount of money. Hey, and before we jump, hey Rob, how you doing?
Hey Rob, how you doing, sir? So called today. I missed this call. So
the amount of money you can save. I mean, look at aftercare for parents. And this goes back to retention, obviously. The amount of money that can be saved in aftercare, after school cost, but because a parent works from home and all they have to do is walk outside, get their kid off the bus, and they're at home, or the kid, and not have to pay for that aftercare service until they get home at 5 or 6 o'clock at night. There's a huge expense savings there, a huge benefit to the employee that's given to the employee. And what does that do? That helps retain them and lock them into a job. And then morale of the employees as well, like that flexibility you're talking about. There's a monetary benefit, but there's that whole morale and just enjoyment and appreciation of that the company's helping them take care of themselves. And again, it goes back to Maslow's, the physiological need of them being able to be home to support their family, while instead of having to not be there, so that that family unit is more intact. A lot of benefits to remote workforce. And I know there's the trust issue and the factor that, the creativity that's driven by in-person work styles. And so there's the balance. I completely get all the arguments from both sides when it comes to this.
But when you're talking big companies, Jason, you're talking, say, big companies with a lot of employees versus, smaller ones, 300, 400. When you're talking huge, I can imagine trying to please so many people. When it's a big, when you're talking 10,000 people or 5,000 people, you know what I mean? That's got to be so difficult on a company to where, okay, how do we make sure we want to retain and put all these things in place? How do you control that many employees to be able to say, okay, well, you're not feeling well, they can work from home. Does it go for everybody? I mean, I guess it's really got to come down to those procedures in place.
And that's where it's gotten tricky from an employee relations standpoint on how to write these policies. And then you get it, especially when it gets into fully remote policies, because, okay, Dave, you live in Pennsylvania, you start working fully remote. Okay. You don't have to come to the office anymore. Well, what happens when Dave moves to Australia?
Right.
And guess what? That company's not licensed to do business in Australia.
Right.
What are the taxes in Australia? What happens if they move to even a different state? And that person, what's the minimum wage? What's the minimum wage in Pennsylvania right now? I think it's somewhere around
$7.25.
Is it $7.25 still? Okay, so what happens if that person is making $7.25 in Pennsylvania right now and moves to California where it's $11.25? Right. But you're only paying the person still $7.25.
Wow, there's so much stuff I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Right. So this is where you go to. There's a whole book on that. But going to the big company, there's definitely got to be clear procedures of how it's implemented, who approves, who has to get notified of all this stuff. And from the employer standpoint, I get it. Like, you had a building that held 3,000 people, but then what happens when, like, 3 out of 4 days a week, there's only 500 people in there? what the heck do you need a building that big for?
That's what I was watching on the news a lot. They had on the
So-
news, and I was like, wow, these places are empty.
Yeah. So
And-
it impacts everything, and but then what are companies doing in order to entice people back into the offices? They're renovating these offices.
Right.
They're putting all this money into it to make it more enticing for the employee to come back to. And I remember that from back in the day, like when I worked at Lucent Technologies Bell Labs headquarters,
right,
where there was geniuses working there. They had the softball team that would play there on site. We had dry cleaners. We had a barber shop. We had the world-class, cafeteria, the bank, the dry cleaners. We had we had a nurse. We had on-site doctors.
Yeah, we had a Thanksgiving. We had a doctor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are the things that we had that did entice people to come and work there.
But it wasn't
because it was convenient for them.
Yep.
It made it convenient so that's what things that employees have to look at is if you're going to go in with that, then you got to make it convenient. So that way someone can get a haircut on site and have to instead of going out, or
that's
can
so
go to the
we
bank.
did that. We did that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Or has access to a doctor on site. There's so many things that companies need to go back to doing really to drive a high employee morale with an in-person work environment from a retention standpoint.
It'll stay in there. One more thing for tonight, and when it
comes
to retention, what's that?
I could talk forever. Sorry.
We're almost at an hour, so we've gone. No, I love it. Reviews. I want to talk to you about it when it comes to retention. Listen, a lot of people, when you first go to work somewhere, you'll look up. I did. I mean, you're going to look up there and you're going to see it. Whoa, a 2.2.
Yeah.
But I'm always a firm believer on listen. I read I do read the reviews, and I take that negative people only put negative things all the time, and I get that. And I always put good reviews on my company, anything that I like, because I think they deserve it. Sometimes reviews are true. If you look at the same thing, like if they say management, maybe there is something wrong. Oh geez, what's this, Kenny?
I had to throw that up on the screen. It's a plug.
As soon as I see his name,
hire me.
Goodness to others. Yeah, that'd be a good. See, you're going to get a good review right there. So you know what?
There you go. I got a good review from Kenny.
Yeah, a review from Kenny. But do you? What do you think of when you see reviews all the time for like companies?
I completely agree. An employer should investigate to the extent they're able to a potential employee.
Yes.
And a potential candidate should investigate it in a company. If you're prepared, you need to do that. So as a recruiter, and you're going to go hire somebody, you should look into that person. I have gone on their social media accounts and see see who I'm hiring from that perspective. I have gone out, and if I'm hiring somebody who's a technician, I'll go on that where they're working. And
I know you're saying. No, I get what you're saying now.
And look at what the companies say about that. See what kind of reviews that that technician might have got. But from a reverse, like you're saying, a candidate should be going on Glassdoor and investigating that company and see what kind of company they're getting into, what the customers think of that company, what the employees think of that company, what are the benefits that they offer, how do they feel, is the company well organized, is the company give good reviews, does the company give bonuses? I mean, just because you say, okay, you're a salaried individual and you get a 10% bonus every year, well, has it paid out?
Right.
Has the bonus actually paid out? Because guess what? It could be 100%, but if it's a 0% payout for the last 3 years, it's zero, right?
It's zero.
So,
that's big at the end of the day.
So there's definitely you should be investigating that company. Absolutely.
I would always tell people to put a good review. I like to put a good review. If my company does something well, I like putting it on there. I think they deserve something because everybody's always putting the negative, and I get it. Now I do see companies responding to a review.
Hey, there's a direct correlation, Dave, between that review and the morale and culture at that company. I guarantee it. I haven't seen a study on it, but I guarantee there's a correlation between a high review and a high employee satisfaction rate at that company and that culture. I guarantee that.
Matching, you mean?
Yeah, matching. If a company's close to a 5-star, I guarantee there's a highly engaged workforce there as well. Probably.
That's what I mean. That's what I like how you said that, because that's what I was trying to say in a way. Because if you do have some positive, like I would tell when I had mine, I was like, please, can you put a good review? I have a company that does HVAC. And you know what? They go by they praise themselves on Google reviews, and they're ranked very high. And all the employees, when you said that, love working for them because they take care of them. They give them a lot of things, and they have a 5-star rating. A lot of people say, well, no, you don't get a 5-star rating with 500-600 reviews.
Yeah,
that's some serious work that you're putting into it.
Correct. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to that.
Yeah, because it's really showing you what the company does. And I learned a lot. I was like, Mike, wow. Like I said, I know the president of the company. I'm like, is that what you do? He's like, yeah, we take care. I was like, wow, that's friggin' outstanding. I'm like, you got to love it. They'll take pictures. Their tech will take a picture with the client that they've done the job with, and then they'll post that.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Yeah. No, it shows pride. It shows pride in the company because those companies, they do everything possible to keep that. If they're investing that much into their customers and trying to keep their customers happy, they're investing that much into their employees probably to keep their employees happy. So there's a direct correlation. Again, I'd love to probably find a study that showed that, but it's definitely a truth.
No, I believe when you said that about the 5, because if it's a positive, you're right. If it's positive there, it's going to be positive there because they're not putting negative things on there. And it's okay. Have I ever put a negative review? I really don't think I have. I've been mad, but I just don't feel, to me, I just don't do it. If it's a good one, I don't think I've ever put a negative review. Have you?
I have. Yeah.
Oh, you have? Yeah. I haven't.
Mostly on those Amazon ones. They're the easy ones to leave. But
because then they'll give you something for free.
If I got bad service or a bad product, I'll let them know. It's feedback. And a lot of times I'll give them an opportunity to fix it. But if they don't, to take care and remedy it. But if they don't, I'll throw the negative review out there.
But the way we just were talking about that, it's the same with the workforce, just like that. With a product, because you're talking about the company versus a product. It's the same thing. You're putting negative. What do? You fix the problem. If you have a problem, you fix it. If you don't fix it, you're going to get what you pay for. You're going to continue to get that. So it's kind of the same way for the retention part of it. You treat them good, they treat you well. You get a great product, you have good managers. This is what you get.
And you can't give some of our earlier points you can't just throw anything at anybody to appease them, right?
Right.
But you should be able to explain the whys and the hows and the why nots to the person. You still have to have the conversation with them, just like you have a customer that might be a customer that's that has a disagreement with you. You still need to explain to them what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do and why. And usually that will help the conversation, or if not satisfy the conversation with an employee or a customer. But at the end of the day, it should make it a little bit easier for them to understand.
Right. And I agree totally with that. One last comment from Kenny here. You got to love this, right? If you see my social media account, would you still hire me?
Kenny, I've actually looked at your social media account.
Yeah, I looked at yours too, Kenny.
You got the same picture. So
it is. Yeah, it is. Is that the one sitting at the chair and the table?
I don't remember if he's sitting at the chair,
There's
but
one
I'm pretty sure he had a tie on in that picture, though.
We're gonna have to look.
There you go, Kenny.
Jason. I want to thanks for coming on tonight. Well, I tell you what. Again, all my trees that I cut down, I don't even get to it all.
Hey.
I mean, this subject here about retention is so. There's so many things, and I know you're in the HR field, but there are so many things in that word retention that it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Everything comes down, everything we talked about on different shows, it all comes down to the retention of people.
Hey, getting on the team is one thing. Staying on the team is another thing. So, and I'll throw it with this, Dave. You got your wife and you worked hard to get her, but how much harder do you work to keep her?
Okay. All right. I'm going to get it. I love it. No, that's true. That's true. It's a continual investment that you have to do. So, it's on a personal note, but it's a commitment with an employee too. You got to work just as hard once you have them to make sure that they stay motivated and they want to stay married to you in the job and in their career. The same thing. But no, I want to thank you. It was great. I'll tell you what, man, we hit the hour, 59 minutes and 7 seconds. So
there we go.
Dangerous, please spill the Texas tea tonight or the Pennsylvania tea. I'll let you and Jason talk tonight. You guys are probably, I can imagine your conversations for all night. But Kenny, you got to come on the show. You got to at least do it one time on the show. Thanks a lot, Jason.
I had a blast. Thank you. I'm
love it.
always open to coming back and being here with you.
Talk to you right after this.
Yep.